So this is lesson LG.10 or .10 on adding and subtracting fractions. Now we're going to be going back and doing a little bit of review as well of this, and we're going to make sure that we go through what are fractions and kind of how do we understand fractions. As mentioned, this is a review. It should be from grade 8, and so this might be fairly straightforward, but we'll go through it for those of you who may not understand it or may need a little bit more practice on it as well. So a fraction is often used when a part of a whole is described. Okay, so when we have something that's a whole, it's all of it, okay, then that's a whole number. It would be like a 1 or 2 or 3. If we're using part of that number, then there's a couple different ways we can describe it. One of those is using a fraction. Another one would be like a decimal. We'll talk about decimals a little bit later on. So a fraction, and so we're going to do fractions right now. So the fraction is described as follows. This here is a fraction. We have the number 1 with a line over the number 4. This is just one example. The top number, and I'm sure many of you kind of know the name already, this is what we call the numerator. Numerator, there we go. Okay, this is how many parts of the whole are represented. So in this case here, we have one part of the whole, but now we don't know how big those parts are. Okay, based on the numerator, we just know that that is the number of parts that we have. The second part here is what we call the denominator. And this is how many parts the whole is divided into. So this means that the whole number is divided into 4 parts, and we have one of them. Okay, so that 1 represents how many we have, and the bottom number represents how many there of the whole are there. So think of this as though we have like a pizza. Okay, maybe you've had pizza in the last few days. Okay, or maybe at your orientation. Okay, if there are 4 pieces in total, you have one of them. That is 1/4. It's 1 out of the 4 pieces that we have. We can describe them as follows, and I'm going to show a couple different descriptions here. Okay, so something like this here, we would have this box is divided into 4 even sections. And now, one thing we can remember too is that these are, okay, and the denominator represents even sections. We're always going to have something in even sections. This is 4 even sections. Just like I drew out here, there are 4 even sections, and one of them is shaded, meaning that this would be 1/4, or 1 out of 4. So this is 1/4 of that whole. The shaded part is 1/4 of the full piece. Okay, now remember, a whole would be like 1. We might also have more than 1, but in this case here, of this whole one here, 1/4 is shaded. The second one, okay, you notice again, it's split into 4 even sections, okay, but now 2 of them are shaded. Okay, so this would be 2/4, or 2/4, which is a way of describing these here. Okay. Now, the other thing that we can kind of think of here is that, or we're going to kind of get into it here, this could be described as a different fraction as well. So, in the next little part here, our fractions can be simplified. Okay, simplified if both the numerator and the denominator can be divided by the same integer. Now we're going to go through what integers are a little bit later in more detail, but an integer is just a positive or negative whole number. So something like 1, 2, 3, or -1, -2, -3. Okay, in the previous example here, there are 4 sections of the whole. Okay, remember that was our denominator there, and can be made into 2 sections. Okay, without either section without either section being only half shaded. So in this one here, I'm going to just redraw it a little bit. So here's our whole. Now instead of doing it into 4 sections, if we just kind of put these 2 together and put those 2 together, we're now 2 even sections, and this part was shaded. You'll notice that that whole number, or that one section was all shaded, like here. This one it wouldn't have worked because then we'd only have like half of the section shaded, so that doesn't work. But this one is shaded, and so this now is, there are 2 sections of the whole, and one of them is shaded, so this would be 1/2. This means that 2/4 is exactly the same as 1/2. Okay, so instead of there being two shaded sections, only one of the two is shaded, and so this would be what we would consider lowest terms. Whenever we write out a number, okay, or a fraction, I should say, sorry, a fraction, we are always going to write it in lowest terms. Okay, so 2 over 4 is exactly the same as 1/2. Now, without drawing it out, another way that we can do that, and I'm just going to click over that, just on the side here. So 2 over 4, if we look at this number, sorry, that should be an equal sign. If we look at this number here, if we can divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same integer, okay, we can simplify it. So 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now, if it works, that is perfect, and that's what we want to do. If it doesn't work, then we're going to have to leave it the way it is. So something like 1 and 4, the only number that these two can be divided by evenly is 1, right? 1 divided by 1, 4 divided by 1 would just give us 1/4, so it doesn't change it. And so, in other words, this here is already in lowest terms, okay? So that one is already in lowest terms. Again, all answers that you come up with must be in lowest terms. Now, if you would like to continue watching these videos, you can and keep going towards the end, or you can work on questions number 1 and 2, which are based exactly on this video here.